Joining us in studio is also a local guest, Dr.
Duncan McCollum.
Duncan McCollum. You are a doctor, right?
I'm a chiropractor.
Not doctor as in Dr. Dre or
not
Dr. J
Future or anything like that.
or Dr. Future, right? A real doctor. You're a real chiropractic doctor.
That's right.
Okay, so are we going to have tips along with history? We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff that sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay, first of all, did you say you have an event coming up tomorrow?
Yeah.
Listening to Flight 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. In the background, we have a little local music from a local musician. Joining us in studio is also a local guest, Dr.
Duncan McCollum.
Duncan McCollum. You are a doctor, right?
I'm a chiropractor.
Not doctor as in Dr. Dre or
not
Dr. J
Future or anything like that.
or Dr. Future, right? A real doctor. You're a real chiropractic doctor.
That's right.
Okay, so are we going to have tips along with history? We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff that sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay, first of all, did you say you have an event coming up tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow night at my office at McCollum Family Chiropractic.
And what are we going to see when we show up? What are we going to be presented?
I'm going to be going over some, we know that the cause of disease cause of chronic disease has been boiled down to chronic inflammation in the body. And chronic inflammation is really boiled down to chronic inflammation in the cell and the cell wall. There's so many toxins in our environment, including heavy metals, that actually come down 4 generations through our mothers, through the placenta blood. So we get lead and mercury that is accumulative over, several lifetimes that is delivered into the baby.
What are you telling me? So as if though I'm not consuming enough of this stuff, I have to deal with what my mom had and what her mom had and her mom?
Yeah.
So it's multi-generational, just kind of...
Yeah, exactly. And one of my staff members always used to say, if it isn't one thing, it's your mother. So this is definitely right along that line.
But we are here. I invited you, or you kind of offered your... to come in and talk about history, right?
Yeah.
Because you know that I'm into local history. I'm not... I can't manage to stay awake long enough to read these books. I want to read all this stuff. I have all these books, but I love local history. And I was blown away that you were an author, number one, and that the books that you wrote involved some local history as well, right?
Yeah.
And so writing these books, you found out a lot, yes?
Yeah, I did. And actually, because my ancestors got here in Salinas in 1852, I have most of my stories are based on stories I heard from my family growing up, and each one of them has a lot of truth into it, and so it's a historical fiction because I will take one little part and then build off of that. And it started as a bedtime story. My first book, I would tell my kids stories every night, and that was The Adventures of Little Big Jim. And it's pretty, by the time. One day my son said to me when he was older, he goes, "Dad, why don't you write a book?" And I go, "I probably should." And it took another 5 or 6 years to do it, but I did get it done finally.
How long does it take to write a book? 5 or 6 years, or it was just that one particular book?
Yeah, that first one, because I never really thought I would ever publish it. I just kind of kept working on it, and I had a couple different drafts. And then it got to, actually what happened, I was singing down in Monterey with a friend of mine. And I was mentioning to one of the ladies there that I had written books of the local Monterey Bay. And she goes, "Oh, well, my husband got a book published by this guy named Tony Seaton. He's a publisher. And he had his book published in 6 weeks." Wow. I went, "What?" So I contacted Tony, and sure enough, 6 weeks later, I had my first book published.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the book... First of all, we opened up with some local music, right?
Yeah.
And that was a friend of yours?
Yeah, that's Smith and Gail Dobson, and they're singing about Sasha Dobson. So Smith Dobson was an amazing, amazing piano player, probably one of the best on the West Coast, if not unbelievable. And he unfortunately passed away several years ago in a car accident. Oh. But the song that he was singing, Sasha Bassa, is about his daughter. When I first met Smith and Gail, Sasha was maybe 3 years old, and he wrote this song, Sasha Bassa, "Life is like a bounce on Daddy's knee," is in the song. And I always thought that was so amazing because, life should be like a bounce on Daddy's knee. Then we start to grow up and all kinds of things happen, and it seems like it can get very complicated. So I always like to listen to that music, and I play that at the beginning of my radio show because I want to actually get people to realize, there is hope out there. There's a lot we can do to enjoy our life and be healthy and happy.
479-1080. We're going to spend some time with Dr. McCollum today, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Let's start off with Little Big Jim.
Yeah.
Okay? Tell me more about this. How many books do you have, by the way?
I have 3 published and about 4 that I'm writing right now.
And they are all local, it seems, based on in Monterey County. Is that Monterey County?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's Carmel Valley, and then one of them, the one that's called Coalinga Station A, which is about Coalinga, that's Kings County, and that's on the other side of Big Sur, really. But Little Big Jim, I'm sure we've all, anybody out there who's ever been in a family, I'm not sure if everybody has or not, but if you've ever been a parent or a kid, then you've been in a family. That's supposed to be a joke, by the way. In my office talk, sometimes I say, if you've ever been in a family, raise your hand. And then I see these blank stares and go, okay, now I know who we're talking to. But right. Anyway, I was driving with my kids up in Robinson Canyon, actually, which you mentioned a few shows ago.
Yes.
And we have, there's a place at the end of it called White Rock. And White Rock is it's an old hunting, not lodge, it's a hunting group. And there's about 101 cabins up there, and we happen to have one. And so we were going up there, and my kids were making all kinds of noise and just, fighting and kicking. And
what is up there, White Rock? What is that?
White Rock, it's a hunting camp. There's 3,300 acres up there. And there's these old cabins. There's a lake, and, people go up there. In the old days, the men would go up, and I guess they would hunt boar and deer and pigeons. And, now it's just kind of more of a family place to go. But right on the right side of Robinson Canyon Road is a place called Santa Lucia now, which is an amazing development. It was Rancho San Carlos when I grew up. It's 25,000 acres. And my friends owned it. The Oppenheimer family owned that growing up. So when we were kids, we'd go down and we'd get a Jeep and we'd drive around and just have a blast on this property. And the old ranch house is a Spanish-style ranch house. It's just unbelievable. And so I always had a lot of affinity for when I was able to get a place up at White Rock. I would always look at that property that is now, now Santa Lucia. But at any rate, so we're driving up the roads and the kids are kicking and screaming. And I remember when my brother and sister were small. I wasn't born yet, but they were in Mexico, and they were doing the same thing. And my dad told them, you guys, why don't you be quiet and look out the window? You might just see a wild animal. And as it happened, they came over a hill, and there was a circus that was traveling, walking elephants. And that always impressed me.
Oh, yeah, that would be impressive.
Yeah. So I told my kids, hey, you guys were almost up to Little Big Jim's house, because Robert Louis Stevenson had a house up there that he would go. The Oppenheimers owned it, and he would go there and write in this house. And we used to go and I never went in it. I wish I would have, but we'd look at it. And all that's left is a fireplace now. But that got their attention. And so that became the Adventures of Little Big Jim.
Now, Robert Louis Stevenson was the guy who wrote Treasure Island, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he lived in the late 1800s. I think he died around in the early 1900s.
Did he actually live around that area, or he'd just go up there to vacation?
Yeah, he'd go up there to write. I'm not sure exactly where he lived, but the school's out there, obviously, too, for him.
Now, Robinson Canyon is where, the first time I heard about Robinson Canyon was as I was doing research on Carmel Valley and Monterey. I was doing research on lost treasures, right, and all that kind of stuff, and shipwrecks. And I heard about Robinson Canyon, and that there's a bunch of Indian artifacts up there.
Yeah,
what's the history up there? Do you know?
I don't know about the Indian artifacts, but I can tell you there's a lot of caves up there.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of caves? I mean, like dirt caves or limestone caves?
Yeah, they're dirt caves that have come out of the ground. Like, in fact, when you read the first part of Little Big Jim, I described driving up that road, and on one side's a sheer cliff, and on the other side there's far off in the distance, you see a sloping mountain with all kinds of caves in it. And I've never explored them myself, but I've
is it public property? I mean, probably not public, but
no, but you can get up there. You might get chased off, but you can get up there.
That would be super cool, man.
Yeah.
I don't really like going in tunnels. I get kind of freaked out about that. but if it's cool enough, I'm going in.
Yeah, they're pretty shallow, There's one that we did go in, and I didn't see any artifacts or any sign of the Indians.
How big of a cave are you talking about?
It's about half the size of this room. I mean, it wasn't huge.
Big enough that you could stand up and party or do whatever, right, with a couple friends.
I didn't do that.
Right, of course not. but it's that big enough.
Yeah,
big enough so you could stand a few people in there.
Yeah.
I also read a story about this one guy. I don't know if you heard that show, who found a cave. I don't remember which mountain it was, but he found a cave because he had a gold mine up there, a silver mine. Mm-hmm. And he went digging around. The wall collapsed, and he found a room that was the walls were sparkling, I guess, with minerals. But inside there was a river that went through it because it was a limestone cave. There was albino fish there with no eyes because they didn't need eyes, right?
Yeah.
And on the walls were cave paintings of mammoths and things like that. There was, the mortars or pestles. What are they called? The Indians used to use. Yeah, that kind of stuff is up there.
Yeah.
What else have you learned? What other cool things did you learn about studying up there, about the history?
Well, I was going to tell you that, just speaking of the cave thing, which is really interesting, one of my, I'm going fishing up in Northern California next week, and the guy I'm going with, he spent a lot of time up there, and he was telling me about a friend of his that found an Indian cave, because this is like the most amazing Indian country you could imagine. It's in Northern California.
Where is this again?
It's up Fall River area by Bernie. It's up Highway 299.
Bernie is the name of a town?
Yeah. Bernie Falls. Okay. And this guy found this amazing cave full of all kind of artifacts. So he thought, wow, this is too good. This needs to be, cataloged. So he went to Cal Berkeley and got the archaeology or the whatever their names are to come, and anthropologists to come up. And when he showed him where the cave was, they wouldn't let him in. And he goes, wait a minute, I showed you this thing. I want to be involved in all of the cataloging. And they said, no, sorry, it's too important. You're kicked out.
Wow.
So he was
Thanks
pretty.
A lot, huh?
Oh, yeah. The funny part about it is, like, about 2 years later, he found another one. And he went back to Berkeley and told them that he found another cave. And they demanded that he give them the direction. He goes, okay, well, I've got rights to go. And they said no. He goes, okay. He got up and started walking away. And they said, no, wait, what do you got? So he had an attorney write up something that allowed him to go in and catalog it.
Wow, what a bunch of jerks.
Yeah.
But, if something's that important, you don't want some clown to go in there and start digging around. You know, my mom was part of an excavation out there on Cannery Row, which we'll talk about. We have all kinds of stuff to talk about. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's invite phone calls. You want to take some phone calls? Okay, so we're speaking again with Dr. Duncan McCollum. He has several books. The Adventures of Little Big Jim?
Yeah, and then Coalinga Station A, and my recent one is Kaleidoscope. It's a World War I story in France, a fighter pilot in France.
And we can pick these up on Amazon for sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's head out to Salinas. Dave is first up. Thank you for your call, Dave. You're in the air.
Hi, guys. Hey, it's good to hear from your speaker there, your guest. I was wondering if he was aware, I guess bordering San Carlos Ranch and the Fish Ranch, there used to be an old airplane. It was just a spotter plane that had crashed back there, and we used to hike back and check it out. And every year we'd go, and it was just like less than less of the plane. Have you ever been there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that. Can you repeat it?
It was a plane that had crashed back on the San Carlos Ranch, but it was bordering the Fish Ranch, which is there too.
Yeah. No,
Have you ever been?
No, I never made it to that. I didn't hear about that. I'm sure it sounded like a lot of fun, though.
Oh, it was fun to go hiking and hunting too. And the other one is the Forest Ranger Tower, which is on top of San Carlos Hill there, that looks over the Carmel Valley.
Yeah, that's a Mystery on Witch Mountain. That's a Disney movie off of that one. Yeah,
but have you ever been able to get back to where the guy that was watching the tower used to do a lot of carvings and chiseling of statues?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a couple 100 yards away from the tower and over the side of the hill, and he had made his own little cave.
Oh, I didn't see the cave.
Yeah, he had a lot of statues and stuff in there, and the owners of the San Carlos Ranch, I think, were able to get it. It's sad, though, that the San Carlos Ranch is now developed to where nobody even lives in these gigantic homes that are back there. It's just amazing. They, 5, 6, 8,000 square foot houses, and they're just taking up all the land, and it's not being used except for them.
Yeah, it's true.
Corporation homes.
Yeah, I remember those carvings on those granite rocks. They had like a mermaid and all kinds of really cool stuff.
Thank you for your call, Dave. Where is this? Where's this?
Well,
that he's talking about?
when you drive out Carmel Valley Road, you'll see off in the distance a white fire tower far off, and that's it. That's part of the San Carlos Ranch. And
Okay, how far down Carmel Valley? So I turn off of Highway 1, go down Carmel Valley, right? And
Yeah.
about how far am I talking about?
Well, Robinson Canyon Road is, I believe, 6 miles. There's a
Okay.
Safeway shopping center there. Right after that is Robinson Canyon Road, and you go up there. But I don't even know how to get to the tower unless I was on the property, because we just went by dirt roads, and those probably don't even exist anymore.
And so what's he talking about? Carvings in granite.
So the ranger station, you just sit up there by yourself and look for fires for 3 or 4, 5 months a year. Not a lot to do. This guy just started carving on these big granite boulders, and some pretty neat stuff. I don't remember it very well because we're talking 40 years ago plus. And but it was fun, and we would go into the tower too. The family had ways to get into the tower, and we'd go up there, and it was a lot of fun. I never saw the cave he was talking about, though.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But you say there's a lot of caves up there in Robinson Canyon.
Yeah. I believe most of them are probably just natural erosion type things, but you want to find out more about them, read Coalinga Station A. I talk about some of them up there.
We're going to talk more about that. We got to head to a break, and then we'll be back on the other side. Let's go out with some more music from your friend. So your friend's daughter, you say that he's singing about here. She's got her own group now too.
Oh yeah, Sasha Dobson. She lives in New York. She sings with Nora Jones. She was on David,
really?
Yeah, she was on David Letterman with Nora Jones. That was kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
And she is in a group called Puts in Boots with Nora Jones and one other female player. She's like on 16 different groups.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing lady.
All right, well, let's head out with, I don't know any other songs, so we're just going to go out with the same song. We'll listen to a little bit more of this while we head out to news. Susan Simon is standing by with headlines. Remember to check out KSCO.com for headlines whenever you are ready. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, KSCO.com. 479-1080, 218-5726. DM at KSCO.com. If you don't want to call in, you can text or email or also interact on Facebook and Twitter. We're sitting here with Dr. Duncan McCollum. We're going to talk a lot of stuff, Dr. McCollum, and we're going to go to Coalinga. Hey, we're going to start talking about Coalinga, but first let's get to some emails here. Okay, awesome show, Dave. Love the guest. Excellent history and stories. Plane crash on San Carlos Ranch. From the last caller, I've been there. My uncle owned a bit of neighboring property where the plane crash was. We used to hike to it all the time. I'm sure it's still there. Also in Robinson Canyon, there's a lot of mortar and pestle in the rocks inside the river from the Indians that used to live there. Your bro and Dave in Monterey. So, yeah, that would make sense. Those kind of mortar and pestles, I think that's what they're called, right?
Yeah.
The mortar and pestles is what that guy found in that tunnel. Right,
Yeah.
so let me finish this story.
Okay.
So this guy is digging through a silver mine that's on his property because at the time, I guess when the Spaniards were here, they first got here, and the Indians would travel to some place and just bring back this really fine, like, sand, either gold or silver. In this case, it was silver, right? And no one really knew where it was. One of the last dying Indians trusts the secret with this guy. This guy goes and starts digging around. So now he's on his silver mine. He's digging around. The wall collapses. He finds this room where there are all these cave drawings from Indians, right? From Ohlone Indians, probably, of mammoths and whatever else they were hunting. Stone flowers on the wall. And the walls were glistening with minerals. I don't know if it was silver or gold. I don't know what it was, but there were obviously some kind of mineral there. There was an underground river going through there with white fish, no eyes, because, again, they were living in the dark. They didn't need them. Just totally cool, man. That is totally cool, isn't it?
That sounds pretty amazing.
Did you ever see the movie Goonies?
No.
What? Oh, man, you got to see the movie Goonies. It's from the 80s. It's a classic from the 80s, and it's every kid's dream where they find this big cavern with a wrecked pirate ship inside.
Oh, man.
It's just every kid's dream, man. That is fantastic. And those caves, you say, exist out there in Robinson Canyon, right?
Yeah, there's definitely out there.
Did you ever hear anything about this plane crash on San Carlos Ranch?
I didn't, and I don't know what year that was. I spent a lot of time out there in the 70s, so, anything beyond that up until I got my cabin in the 90s out there in White Rock is, and my friends sold the property at one point, so I kind of lost
You know, when I think
track of
Santa
it.
Lucia, is it Santa Lucia?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
I think of big, giant houses like that guy said, because
Yeah.
I used to work in cabinets and we built a couple kitchens for those houses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys were ridiculously rich.
Yeah.
I mean, like $100,000 in cash to pay for in cash, bang, there it is. Like, holy crap, man.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money up there. And
Yeah.
that used to be
It was just 25,000 acres. It was one half of the original, I guess, ranchero up there. The other half is west of it, and it was 20,000. And I didn't know the family that owned that one, but it was just a cattle ranch. Unbelievable. And now when you drive through Santa Lucia, if you can get in there, they have numbered gates, but it's like a park the whole way. It's just phenomenal. It's not even part of this world,
479-1080-218-5726, DM at ksco.com. There you go. There's some more fan mail from you, but we don't want to get into that here. Okay, so let's talk about Coaling Station A.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the book? What is the name of the book?
Yeah, Coaling Station A. That's my second book, and
this one's mine.
Yeah,
this one's not mine.
Oh,
mine is autographed.
Am I stealing it?
Yeah, you took mine. Give me
Damn
mine
it.
back.
Okay. Did I say that on air? Probably not.
There you go. Okay, yeah, this one's mine. Coaling Station A: The Rise and Fall of an Oil Boom Town, by Duncan McCollum. This is a nice book. It's about 200 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
About 200 pages. If you're a fast reader, you could probably burn through this in 2 days, one day.
Probably.
Okay, so what is this book about?
So Coalinga, Coaling Station A, there used to be 3 coaling stations down in the Central Valley, Coaling Station A, B, and C.
Okay.
And obviously the train would stop there to get more coal. So
Coaling station meaning what? That this is where they pick it up, or this is where they dig it out?
Yeah, they'd pick up the coal.
Okay.
And then it would be able to run the engines back and forth to the gold mines, or back and forth to San Francisco to L.A. or wherever they were going. But Coalinga is coaling with an N on the end of it, and so somehow or other Coalinga got Coaling Station A. A little town popped up, and it became called Coalinga. And actually, Coalinga was one of the 6 largest economies in California at one point.
Wow. And why was this?
1910 to 1915. The oil boom was so big there. It was like the largest gusher at that time came in down there. And it was something like 100 feet wide, and it shot 300 feet in the air for a month or something. I mean,
holy cow.
Yeah, unbelievable. We're talking about people like Mrs. Hearst, Randolph Hearst's mother, bought into one of them. I actually found a manuscript of a radio show that explained the history of Coalinga all the way back to the prehistoric times. They have mastodons there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they have all kinds of amazing prehistoric things happening.
What was the name of this book? Do you remember, or is it?
No, it was actually a radio show that my grandpa was the editor of the Coalinga Record for probably, he got there in 1910. He was born in 1883, and he died at 97 in about 1980, and so he was there the whole time. And what's really interesting, I'll talk about the book, but I went by about 3 weeks ago to take the book to the library, and the museum, and the museum was closed on a weekend. It's kind of a small town. So I went to Starbucks, and some older gentleman sitting there, and I went up and introduced myself and asked if they remembered Mac. They go, "Oh yeah, I remember Mac." And everybody was the ex-mayor there, apparently, because I ran into 2 ex-mayors. And so at any rate, yeah, Coalinga sprang up really quickly. It's called it was black gold. And
Texas tea.
when my grandpa first went there as a newsman, he said the first week there were 2 shootings and a prize fight.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
A legal prize fight?
Legal prize fights. They had the prize fights there for many years. They had there was actually a town right outside of Coalinga called Circle Town, and that's where some of the more shady people hung out.
This is the bad part of town?
Yeah.
Circle Town?
Circle Town. They had over 300 women that would hang out in Circle Town back then.
Oh.
And so anyway, there was a row called Whiskey Row that my grandpa used to talk about, and it's where all of the, the guys, all of the guys that were hunting the gold, or excuse me, mining the oil, would go and spend all their money at the end of the shift.
Whiskey Row, is that in the book?
Yeah, Whiskey Row, and it's my grandpa.
I thought this book was, so this is based on real events and real characters?
There's a lot of it that is. Whiskey Row was laid low. It was burned down in 1915, and my grandpa wrote a pretty famous poem about it. And so that's kind of what got me writing this particular book. But being a journalist, he was writing, there was a lot of money grabbing going on and a lot of claim jumping going on back in the early days. And my grandpa would write in the paper, the Coalinga Record, some of the goings on. And one day, some gentleman in town who was a fairly well-known guy said, "Hey, Mac, let's go fishing. Let's go up Peachtree Grade," which is Highway 198 going over towards the ocean. And so Mac goes, "What does this guy want to go fishing with me for, you know?" So he goes, "Okay, I'll go along with it." So he had a Model A or a Model T, my grandpa did, and he had a 38 revolver that he had bought in Alaska in 1906. He went up on a sailing ship, left San Francisco Bay 3 days before the earthquake on a clipper ship, had no idea the earthquake happened.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, he had this 38 revolver, the same kind that Teddy Roosevelt took up San Juan Hill, sitting around the column of his car. And this gentleman started talking to my grandpa, known as Mac, and saying, "You know, Mac, I don't know if you really should be writing the kind of stuff you're writing in the paper. You know, you're kind of like putting a bad light on a few people." And my grandpa said something along the line of, "Well, you know, I've got to write the truth." And this gentleman started talking about the 4 nice children that my grandpa had.
Right.
And, you know, it would be a shame for something to happen. This is literally the story my grandpa told me. So just happened that a jackrabbit was running along the side of the car. Grandpa grabbed the pistol, shot, got the jackrabbit right in the haunches. Luckiest shot in the world. He doesn't know how he did it. Put the gun away. And
made an impression on that guy, though.
Never heard another thing from this guy. The guy actually, I think he turned yellow and wanted to go home.
So Coalinga, this happened in the early 1900s?
Yeah.
This book is based in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So Coalinga is this town that basically didn't exist until somebody discovered oil?
Yeah, it was sheep herders were there, and some Indians were there. There's 3 different rivers that came in there, and the Indians would come over. The coastal Indians would come over and trade, shells for they would weave baskets there and stuff like that. And that's all in the manuscripts that I got that are in this book, by the way. If you they're, I think in the back, since you have it, since I know you like history so much, if you read in the back of this, you're going to find out the history back to prehistoric time. I put that in there. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And this is Coaling Station A, the rise and fall of an oil boom town. You can find this on Amazon right now, right?
Correct.
You don't even have to get out of your house. You can order it from Amazon right now, have it delivered to your house. Coaling Station A, the rise and fall of an oil boom town.
And it's a murder mystery, just so if you like that kind of stuff.
All right. Just to make it even more exciting, right?
Yeah.
479-1080. Let's head out to Watsonville. John, thank you for your call. You're in the air.
Hello?
Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, I worked up at Rancho San Carlos for 4 years. We were the ones that put the water system in up there before it turned to Santa Lucia. I just wondered if you ever saw any of the watchers up there. I have.
Any of the what?
Watchers? The Santa Lucia watchers?
I'm not sure what that is.
Well, basically, it's something that overlooked. It watched everything up there in the Santa Lucia hills.
Oh, okay.
They were like
some of the
spirits,
stations.
I think. They were like the spirits or whatever that were up there. They were part of the Santa Lucia hills.
No, I never saw them, but I'm sure I felled them.
So
are you saying these are like guardian spirits, guardian?
Yep. Well, look it up. The watchers of Santa Lucia. I drilled the water system up there for 4 years. The well right there at the ranch house is 2,000 foot deep.
Right. That ranch house is amazing, isn't it?
Well, Ron's still there. Ron's still the ranch hand that runs most of that up there. He's still there when I was there too.
Yeah, that's a pretty magical area. When you head up that Robinson Canyon Road, or you get the chance to drive down through Rancho San Carlos Road, I mean, it is magical. And I believe everything you're saying, man. There's something that's protecting that beautiful area up there.
Well, Ricardo Montalban used to film the Lincoln Town Car commercials right there.
Yeah, I believe it.
Really?
Well, yeah, when he did the Corinthian leather commercials and stuff, they were filmed right there.
Yeah, I believe it. It's such a nice area down there.
Thank you for the call, John. 479-1080, DM at ksco.com. What do you think about that, Dr. McCollum? What do you think about the spirits watching over lands and over things? Is it silly or no?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that,
Did you learn of any curses or anything like that in your studies of what's happening? Because I have a cool curse I could tell you about.
No, I haven't, but I can tell you that I've experienced things more than several times in my life, and yeah, that is along that line where I've seen the possibilities of life after death and all that. It's just amazing, and if you want to believe in that, you believe in it, and if not, I understand. But to me, it makes a lot of sense because of the creativity that we see in so many people, the musicians that just start to play music the day they're born, the artists that just have these amazing talents.
Yeah, some people are born with things like that, especially artists. Holy cow. My daughter is just turned 10, and she has friends that already can draw way better than I could ever draw. Right?
That's
and
amazing.
they're 9, 8 years old, 10 years old, and yeah, they were born with something. It's not, maybe learning and training can help you, but that's something that you're born with.
Yeah.
479-1080. I told you my mom was part of an excavation on Cannery Row. Told you that before we went to the break.
Yeah.
And they have to get Ohlone Indians to do the excavation because anybody who does not have Ohlone blood and touches anything, any artifacts, bones, whatever, bones especially, that you do not touch those because you will die a horrible death.
Yeah, I believe it.
And it was cancers or accidents or whatever it was, but boy, man, they were not goofing around. You did not touch those things. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've never heard about a watcher watching over the mountains, but
I've heard of a lot stranger things than that.
Right. 479-1080. So you say Robinson Canyon, and what's another good road you said to go driving?
Well, you can't get on it. It's Rancho San Carlos Road. It was the driveway of this. You'd go all the way up to the ranch house, the Spanish-style ranch house on the top of Rancho San Carlos. But, you can't get in it now unless you get lucky and guess the gate number like I have a couple times.
479-1080. Let's head out to Ben Lomond. Steve, you're in the air. Thank you for your call.
Hi. You were talking about Rancho San Carlos. Is that the entrance to the preserve?
Yes.
Yeah. So I worked on some houses out there, and it's a shame that they've locked that up to only super rich people because it is an amazing place.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just all locked into mega rich people.
It is. There's very little.
It's a shame.
Yeah, you can barely. It's very hard to find places like that around here, and to be able to just drive down that road is breathtaking.
Yeah, and when there's a lot of construction going on in there, they have their own police force, and they have their own speed limits. And so, if you're a carpenter working on a house back there, and you get a ticket, if you don't pay that ticket, you don't go to work. And they can fine the contractor a ton of money too if you do anything bad, like have a beer or something. Their contractor can get fined lots of money.
Wow,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Then you won't have a job anymore.
It's a shame that it's one of the most beautiful places I've worked in, and it's totally locked away.
Yeah, I concur.
Thank you for your call, Steve. 479-1080, DM at ksco.com. Now I feel like I should have enjoyed more driving to that guy's house to go work on it. All right, if you want to send in a text or email, we will take those too. We're sitting here with Dr. McCollum. Again, you have an event coming up tomorrow night, correct?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm a chiropractor in town, and I'm specialized in cellular healing, really, which is now we know the cause of chronic disease is chronic inflammation. Pick up any Time magazine, and you'll see that.
What do you mean chronic inflammation? I don't get it. I mean, check this out. Look, I went paintballing the other day. You see my bruises? Do you see it? Is that the right arm? Is that the correct arm? Do you see a whole bunch of bruises
I
there?
see some. Oh, yeah.
Is that the kind of swelling you're talking about? Or are you talking about internal swelling? What kind of swelling are you talking about?
More internal. So, they're saying that the cause of heart disease is inflammation inside the arteries.
Oh.
So it's just when you have a lot of toxins in your body, it's like if you have put turpentine on your hand and leave it on there for a long time and keep rubbing it, it's going to become swollen and sticky and inflamed. When you have toxins in your body, like heavy metals, now we have glyphosate to deal with, which is Roundup, molds, and then the biochemicals that are in our environment and the food and the air we get. Some livers can get rid of these things easily. Some people have a really hard time getting rid of them, and that will turn on bad genes in your cells. So you can turn on different types of genetic problems, genetic things like, rheumatoid arthritis, or even Alzheimer's disease has genes that get turned on in your head. They've discovered 7 different Alzheimer's genes, last I know, maybe more now. But inside the cell, when you have inflammation in the cell, gets to this little guy called the power plant in your cell called the mitochondria, and it will damage the mitochondria and make you exhausted, and then your body can no longer fight off the environment, and it will eventually, something is going to break down. You're going to get sick and
so how do we stop this? Is that what you're going to be covering tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to be going over, understanding what to look for. And our goal is really to empower the patient. So they might need some help getting there, but it's a lifetime of taking care of yourself, especially if you've got some really bad inflammatory diseases going on.
Now, what if you spent your whole lifetime not taking care of yourself? Is it too late?
Well, you're still around, so no. I mean, take a look at our population. We spend more on any country in the world, really, on medication. We consume 50% of all the drugs made in the world, and we're only 4% of the population. And
that's true?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm assuming you're not lying, but holy cow.
Yeah, and I heard it's up to 70% of all the drugs, but I'll keep it at 50% because that's a government statistic. Wow. We take 50% of all the medications made in the world. We're only 4% of the population, and we're rated 50th in the world for health. So
doesn't all that stuff get into the water supply?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that much about it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got, in some of the municipal water districts, you have Prozac and estrogen and all these different types of toxins going, they can't get filtered out there, and then so we're consuming it.
So the number one cause of health problems is inflammation.
Yeah. Yeah, when you take a look at some of the real new science, now there's a gentleman named Yoshinori Asumi who won the 2016 Nobel Prize in Medicine, and he won it because of his work in something called autophagy, auto meaning self, phagy meaning eating. And when the body gets sick, our cells get weak. So if you have really healthy cells that are a 10 and real weak cells that are a 1 or 2, those ones and twosies are producing new ones and twosies. And then those are, creating more sick cells in your body. We know under moments of stress, so we want to stress the body various ways, your body's going to go into autophagy, and it's going to break down the weak cells in the body, sparing the healthy ones. So
it's a good thing.
Yeah, one of our techniques is to help your body get into autophagy so we can help break down the bad cells and actually get your body to produce something called stem cells, which is recreating the body.
And so you're going to be covering all this stuff tomorrow from 6 to 7, right?
Yeah, my office.
And the office, Brown...
It's McCollum Family Chiropractic, Brown Ranch Marketplace, right off 41st Avenue. The number is 459-9990.
Okay, keep it tuned in to KSEO Santa Cruz because we've got Duncan McCollum for another 2 hours. We're going to talk about more history and books. Sorry about that. Books and history and other things. Keep it tuned in, KSEO Santa Cruz. We are just getting started. We always want your phone calls, texts, and emails. So 479-1080, 218-5726. DM at KSEO.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Who were we listening to, Dr. McCollum?
That's Smith and Gail Dobson. Amazing duo. They were very, very popular back in the day. Unfortunately, Smith is no longer with us, but Gail is doing amazing stuff up in San Francisco.
Smith and Gail, were they married?
Yeah, Smith and Gail Dobson. And Smith Dobson Jr. is up there. He plays almost every instrument in the book. He started off with drums. He plays bass, sax, sings, and he plays in San Francisco a lot. And Sasha, his sister, is in New York.
The bass is a really cool instrument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Boom, boom,
I love
boom. I love that stuff. I would just sit there and play it all day long.
I got a stand-up bass at home.
Do you really?
Yeah.
479-1080. We're sitting here with Dr. McCollum. So tell us again the name of your books, Dr. McCollum.
So the first book is The Adventures of Little Big Jim, and that takes place in 1850 to 1865. It's about journey across the West in an ox cart and a kid that was born there, and he gets shanghaied out of Monterey. And that's that story. The second one is Coalinga Station A, takes place in 1915 in Coalinga, and it's an oil boomtown murder mystery. My third book, which I think is the best, is called Kaleidoscope, and it's a World War I One of the kids that grew up in Carmel, and we're talking about local history, fought for the French during World War I as a fighter pilot. And it's his story and how he took a lot of the farm ranch survival mechanisms that he learned, or techniques he learned, and that's how he got through the war in World War I.
Wow. 479-1080, dm@ksco.com. So before we get to the phone calls, how did Coalinga get its name?
Coalinga got its name because there were coaling stations along the railroad track going from San Francisco to L.A., and there was 3 of them. So they got real clever and called them Coaling Station A, Coaling Station B, and Coaling Station C. As it happened, a little town popped up when oil was discovered in the Coalinga region. It became the largest oil strike in history at the time. And so somebody mistook the sign that said Coaling A and said, I must be in Coalinga. And they liked it, so the name stuck.
It is a cool sounding name, right?
Yeah.
So if you picture yourself driving, you're riding down the railroad, because I guess that was probably the most popular form of transportation.
Yeah.
You're driving through there somehow, and you see Coaling A, Coaling B, Coaling C.
Yeah.
Coaling A is the one that caught on, right?
Yeah.
I guess the other ones didn't have oil on them.
Well, I don't know, but we don't have a Coaling B.
Coaling B. That wouldn't sound very good, right? So they went with the name Coaling A, Coalinga.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. This part of the country, too, is where all of the bandits like Walking Marietta, Three Finger Jack, and Tabucha Vasquez, I'm probably saying that wrong. That's the way my dad used to say it. That's where they all were during the gold rush. And Walking Marietta had his claim stolen by some gringos or white people. So he decided, and they killed his family. So that's why he was.
Did it happen down there?
Yeah.
They killed his family down there?
Yeah, his claim was somewhere down in there, probably the foothills of California, where Highway 49 is. But so that was one of the stories. My dad grew up in Coalinga, and he was born in 1913, and they knew that those hills were filled with the treasure of Walking Marietta, Three Finger Jack, and Tabucha Vasquez.
Okay, wait. So let's start off with Joaquin Murrieta, right?
Yeah.
So if I remember the story correctly, they killed his family. I don't remember what the reason was.
Because he had a gold mine.
And he went after them, right? He went after them for revenge. Did they cut off his head and stick it in a jar?
Yeah. And you can read about that in my book, Coaling Station A, if you want. And this is true. So Joaquin Murrieta and Three Finger Jack were hanging out together. And by the way, in my book, you'll find out how Three Finger Jack became Two Finger Jack. But you're going to have to read that part. That's one of the chapters.
He became Two Finger Jack?
In my book, he did.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a guy.
So anyway, they had a $1,000 warranty, or what's it called? Bounty on Three Finger Jack and Joaquin Murrieta. So they caught up with them down near Bakersfield somewhere, and in order to get the money, they cut off Joaquin Murrieta's head and Three Finger Jack's hand, and then they took it to the Capitol, and they got their money. These existed in jars and were on display. You could go pay $1 to see Joaquin Murrieta's head and Three Finger Jack's hand. Up until the San Francisco earthquake. It was in San Francisco in a museum in the earthquake, and then it got lost. So someday somebody's going to be digging up something. They're going to find this head in a jar. That's going to be Joaquin Murrieta, So I hate to be that guy.
479-1080. We're here with Dr. McCollum. If you want to hang out with us, give us a call, 479-1080, 218-5726, dm@ksco.com. Follow us and interact on Facebook and Twitter. You ready to get to some more phone calls here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's get out to Flinks in Aptos. You're in the air.
Hey, I was calling about that. For a second, I thought it was Saturday, because I thought I was listening to Raising the Standards when you came. I was like, holy cow, I missed 4 days. That music reminded me of Raising the Standards. But I wanted to ask your guest how he got his first book published. Like, how hard was it to finally get into publishing? Like, was it difficult? Or
You know what? I talked about that for a minute. It was really easy. I just ran into somebody who told me about this publisher down in Monterey who loved to help people publish their books. And the guy's name is Tony Seaton. And I got a hold of him. He liked my stuff. And within 6 weeks, my first book was published.
Thank you for your call, Flinks 47910. You know, I'm looking at a map here. Where am I? I lost Coalinga. Is it by San Ardo, San Lucas? Where am I looking?
Get on Highway 101.
101, okay.
And then head south until you find it. It's going to be...
Is it past King City?
Yes.
San Ardo?
Yeah.
Bradley?
It's down there. Do you see Highway 198 coming from Highway 1 to 101? That's where it's at.
Okay. I'll look that up. Now, you mentioned that I had forgotten about this, but their water system was totally poisoned, right?
Yeah. Well, it came that way. Coalinga was the only town in the nation that had 3 taps in their sinks.
This is from day one?
Yeah, the water. Well, first they had to pipe it. They had to bring it in on horse and buggy, like my grandpa did.
Yeah, you were showing me that picture, right? So that picture is your grandpa on a buggy, and this thing has a little water tank on it. He would fill it up at the river and then bring it up to Coalinga to sell it?
Well, this is actually my great-great-grandpa. He was actually the first marshal of Salinas. He came across in a ship. He was a constable in Scotland. I'm digressing here, but he was a constable in Scotland, and he arrested an English nobleman. And the nobleman, they basically got in trouble. He got in trouble for it. So he told his wife, Maggie, that he's moving to the new country. So he got on a ship, and he put his youngest boy, or his oldest boy, as a stowaway on the ship. Came across, ended up in Monterey. That's where the first book, Little Big Jim, comes from. And so he was the first marshal in Monterey, but he also had the first waterworks. And that's this picture of him. He had a horse named Pete that he would attach to this wagon and take it down to the river and fill bottles or barrels with water. Then he would drive around to different houses in Salinas and basically fill up their water for them. So
Pete,
that was...
That name sounds familiar. Is that in the book too?
Yeah, Old Pete. Yeah, that's... I stole him and put him forward a little bit.
So this book, all these historic facts are kind of intertwined with the story, right?
Yeah.
In the storyline.
Yeah.
And it makes for fun reading.
Yeah, all of my books have family history in it and or local history.
And accurate for the most part.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. A little artistic, what do they call that?
Artistic liberty.
Liberty, that's what it is.
My grandpa always used to tell me about Whiskey Row, which burned down in 1915 in Coalinga. And it was Whiskey Row was laid low, and it was where all of the drunken roughnecks, they called them, would go. Those are the guys that worked on the oil derricks. They're called roughnecks. And they had 12-hour shifts, so Whiskey Row was never quiet. It was like Las Vegas. It was constantly going.
And this is in Coalinga.
In Coalinga, yeah. And so what ended up happening is it burned down, and that was the story of it. But so when I put it in my book, I had the wrong street. I called it Fifth Street. And when I took my books to Coalinga, there was a very old gentleman that looked at it, and the lady who has the museum who has my books on there said, he's not going to read the book because you have the street wrong. And so I thought that was kind of funny. He goes, no, it's inaccurate. It was F Street, not Fifth Street, where Whiskey Row was. So I might have to go in and edit it.
All right. 479-1080. Dave is calling from Salinas. You're in the air, Dave.
Hey, I got 3 things for you.
Okay.
San Carlos Ranch is haunted. There are spirits up there. When they were trying to develop the place, the guys were flying in a helicopter, and I guess they hit a wire, and they crashed. And they blamed it on the spirits to protect the sanctuary. And I also got many tickets up there for loud music and driving too fast and having a dog. You're not supposed to have any of those things. And the other one is Coalinga. What a town. Came down out of the mountains looking for gas. We were riding up in the hills and stuff, and I had no idea that there was an earthquake. And that town was leveled. There was not really even a building left standing. And it was amazing just how much, I guess it was right at the epicenter.
Yeah.
And it was gone.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it got wiped out. In fact, the museum that so much of my grandfather's stuff was in got wiped out, and the mastodon tusk that they had in there got wiped out, and a lot of the local history.
It's kind of...
Go ahead.
It's kind of weird, you're riding along and having a good time, and I don't know if it was a couple hours before or if it happened at night or whatever, but we rode into this town to get gas, and there was no town left. It was gone.
Yeah, I know. I remember that day very well.
Thank you for the call, Dave. 479-1080, DM at KSCO.com. Sounds like Coalinga's been through some rough times, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my grandpa had pictures with John Sullivan and because all the boxers, they would do the boxing there. The heavyweight championship was there in Coalinga, in Circletown actually, which was the shady part of town that was right next to Coalinga.
Whiskey Row?
Yeah, Whiskey Row.
What was the name of?
It was F Street. I call it Fifth Street in my book. But regardless, the story about Whiskey Row burning down and the poem my grandpa wrote is in the book, but it talks about who's going to save a prostitute. And finally, the sheriff goes into town or climbs into the burning building and comes out with this lady in his arms. And it's the lady that's known as Jean.
Is she okay?
She's okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that sounds like the section of town that I would like to go hang out in, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the Santa Cruz Mountains have stories, too. I mean, gnarly stories. I think probably the closest thing I could find to that or to think of would be Wright's Station, I believe, is what it was. Wright's Station was just a bunch of hellions.
Yeah, I bet. I don't know about that.
Just alcohol swizzling, or what do you call it, guzzling. Knuckleheads.
Well, you know, after the earthquake, San Francisco earthquake, you know, they're up in SoCal. There was an old mercantile up on Olive Springs Road, and my friends owned it for a while. We lived up there at the lodge for a while.
Really?
They had 2 brothels. They had a bar.
Wow.
We lived in the lodge, and they had a couple other outbuildings. In fact, my youngest son was born up there, and I would tell my friend Phil, I'd go, Phil, AJ's the only legitimate kid born on this property, because I don't know how many were born in the brothels. So, but that was where they got all the wood to rebuild San Francisco.
A lot of the wood to rebuild San Francisco came from the Santa Cruz Mountains. You know, those of you driving on Freedom Boulevard, a lot of people drive Freedom Boulevard from Watsonville to Aptos. Right there near the 5 Mile House it used to be called the 5 Mile House. I don't know what it's called anymore. Right across from it, though, you know, there's a Aladdin Nursery here, and then there's a 5 Mile House here, and on the other corner opposite is a house that used to be a brothel as well for all the loggers. You know, it was right there as the loggers would either come or go to the to work to get into town. There was a brothel right there, and the house is still there. If you look at it, it is still there. That house right there used to be a brothel. Yeah, right there on Freedom Boulevard.
And there was a Whiskey Hill was up there too, which I think was a pretty wild place. Whiskey Hill was, I think they finally shut it down. That was a big party place out on the outskirts of Watsonville where the guys would hang out.
479-1080. Looks like we have enough time to take one more call. Let's head out to, I don't know where he's calling from, but Pure Heart is in the air. Thank you for your call.
Hey, Dave. Pure Heart here. I got 3 quick things. I hope the author covers the San Benitoite and Naturite mines there in San Benito County near Coalinga. Only occurs there and in New Zealand, that particular mineral. And then, I don't know if there's a website called 3rocksresearch.com, and they talk about stuff in that county. They talk about how Piscines and Tres Pinos used to be reversed in the towns. A railroad is hired to build the tracks out to Tres Pinos, which used to be Piscines, and they just convinced the towns to swap the towns, and they reached Tres Pinos first that way and pocketed the difference. So that was pretty weird. Well, I forgot the third one, but anyway, it's very cool. Good show.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
Thank you for your call, Pure Heart.
There's a lot of gems out there. I mean, there's jade mines out there outside of Big Sur. And I had a patient, he's passed away now, a really great guy named Gary. And when I was telling the story to him and write the original book, Adventures a Little Big Gem, he told me about a guy out there named Blanco Diablo. He was an old miner, a real guy. I have him in my book as one of my characters. And Blanco Diablo lived on his jade mine up there in the mountains somewhere. And his cabin was one that you could see through the walls because the boards had air gaps in it. And the government wanted him out of there. So they would go up and try to get Blanco out of there, but he'd hold them off with a gun. He'd shoot, he'd just hold them off. Finally, they just said, we're leaving Blanco up there. He's just going to die in his cabin, and that's apparently what happened. But he gave me a picture of him. Pretty cool. His beard down to about his belly button. looked like kind of a crazy guy, and I guess he was.
I guess so. 479-1080-218-5726. And that's another thing I noticed, too, as I study more about the Santa Cruz Mountains. You know, I'm focusing on Santa Cruz because I grew up around here.
Yeah.
So Santa Cruz Mountains I'm especially focused on. But, yeah, a lot of those times, boy, if you had a hard time, if you got old, right? You say you're, and at that time, 50, 60 was old. A lot of times you would die in the cabin and nobody would know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they would go up there to check on you, hopefully try to get you into town. And by the time they did, through that gnarly travel, you know, going up and down and hills and bumps and all that stuff, the guy would die anyways on the way over there. So, yeah, I believe Diablo, what? Blanco Diablo?
Blanco Diablo.
Would just leave him alone.
Yeah. You know, you were talking on the break about Nizine Marks, too, and, you know, I don't know what's left of it anymore, but we used to go up, and there were the cabins up there and the leftovers.
There's not much left there anymore.
Yeah.
You can see them still. You can still see that there was something there, that, you know, the lumber is still there, the boards are still there, but not much.
Yeah, and also up as kids, we would go up into Roaring Camp. And one of my friends is a little older than me. He knew where some of those old cabins were, and back in the day, we'd go bottle hunting, and he found a potbelly stove up there.
Wow.
That was, you know, one of the
Bottle
old
hunting.
cabins. Huh?
Bottle hunting?
Yeah.
Man, you know, you were telling me that you wanted to go do something too, and I couldn't believe when you said that. I was thinking, what, dude? What? Are you kidding me? Because I'm, amongst my, you know, my family and my kids, I like to do the most kiddest things out of all of them, right? I like to go walking through the rivers. I like to dig for bottles. I like to do all that stuff. That sounds like fun. What did you say you were going to go do?
Oh, one of my childhood friends. He's a medical doctor now. He's a emergency room doc. But we've chased butterflies since we were kids. I mean, we used to do everything. We're going fishing next week, and he calls me up and he goes, Duncan, why don't we go up early and see if we can find some of those caves?
Yeah, man, that is awesome. That would be so cool. Now, the biggest problem is you got to be careful not to walk on somebody's property, right?
Yeah, there's property. There's Indian reservations. You do not want to get caught on those. You know, it's not part of the United States. And, you know, so I don't know. We have
What do you mean Indian reservations?
There's Indian reservations up there where we're going. Huge Indian reservations. This area, it's
in
about
California?
Yeah, it's 3,500 feet. It's above Redding and west of it. You know, when you look at a map of California, you know how you never look to the right-hand side of Northern California? Talk about who's ever talking about somebody protecting the country.
Right.
You don't look there. That was one of the biggest civilizations of Indians you could imagine. I mean, some of the stories I've heard about the burial grounds up there, and it's just phenomenal. The amount of, and it's a beautiful, I mean, you could see how you could live there all year long and just be happy as a clam.
Happy as a clam. I love that expression, happy as a clam. 479-1080-218-5726. So while you're doing this book, and we're waiting for Susan to come back with the news.
Okay.
While you're doing this book, you're researching this book, how much more did you learn about the surrounding areas? I mean, do you know anything about Turk or Tres Pinos or New Hydra? Any of those names ring bells?
No, you know, a lot of it is stuff that I've had in my family. So I would have to research some stuff. I don't remember exactly what I would do, but I would get stuck and I go, well, what happened in that area at that time? Like I looked up the Indians that were there or, you know, a lot of those things. But and the book I'm writing right now is the sequel to Little Big Jim. It's called The Journey's End. And, you know, I had to find a female pirate in the Pacific, and I came across Madam Chin, who I don't know if you know about her. She was the biggest female pirate, one of the largest pirates in history. She had 70,000 pirates under her at right at the beginning of the 1800s. China tried to get her. They sent their navy after her. She defeated it.
She was Chinese, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Chin.
Madam Chin. Yeah. She defeated the Imperial Navy. So then the Emperor of China got the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the British, and what was left of the Chinese Navy to go after her. She defeated them.
What?
Yeah. They finally.
Wow, I've never heard of her.
Yeah, Madam Chin. She actually, they gave her asylum finally and said, just come live on the country. You don't have to give any of your money back. And she just lived back in Cancun and lived till she was an old lady.
Wow,
Amazing.
man.
It's in my third book. Fourth book.
Is this more local music, Dr. McCollum?
Yeah, this is Sasha Dobson. We've been listening to Smith and Gale, and this is their daughter, Sasha. She now lives in New York. She's doing amazing out there, playing with people like Nora Jones. She played with Neil Young, traveled with him for a while.
Wow.
And just an amazing talent.
Wow, that's great. I love hearing about local talent and local people making it successful. I don't know about making it big, but being successful.
Yeah,
in whatever it is
what
that they choose.
Yeah, loving what she does.
Yeah, loving what they do.
Yeah,
absolutely. 479-1080 DM@ksco.com. All right, Dr. McCollum. So we're talking Coalinga here. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So maybe we should wrap up Coalinga.
Okay.
What else? What else are we missing here? Anything else that we're missing? Coalinga. The name, it stands for coaling, right? Coaling Station A.
Yeah.
It was founded in the early 1900s once oil was discovered there.
Yeah.
This became the 6th biggest economy in the world.
No, in California.
In California, the 6th biggest economy.
It might have been even more than that. It might have been the first. I can't remember. I'm going off my memory. But it was huge. It had some of the largest oil. It was the largest oil discovery in the world at that time.
And it's got so much oil under it. I don't know if it's still, but is that connected to the dirty water problems that they had there?
I'm sure
you were
was.
saying that they had 3 taps, right?
Yeah. Now, my grandfather moved there in 1910, so he has a lot of the history. My dad was born there and all that. But, yeah, I remember going to visit my grandpa, and there were 3 taps in the kitchen, One was water, cold water that you'd wash your dishes with. One was hot water, and then there was drinking water. They had to pipe it in because it was just so bad you couldn't drink it.
And it was why?
It was, I think, it's just too much sulfur in it from being around the coal, just sitting in that bed of coal and oil down there.
479-1080-218-5726. If you have any questions, send them in to us. Okay, this is the one she wanted to send. That's a silly joke about being happy as a clam.
Oh.
Okay, so it's a clam in a psychiatrist's chair, but I don't think it translates to radio very well.
No.
Okay, so let's see. Anything else that we want to talk about Coaling Station A?
I think that's about it. There's some great history there, and I would recommend picking the book up and enjoy it.
Okay, and you can buy this again on Amazon.
On
right?
Amazon, we have it at Bookshop Santa Cruz.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right, good,
Yeah,
good. Do you
all my
carry
books
that?
are there.
Do you have them over there at your office?
Yeah, I have them at my office. Bookshop Santa Cruz. Zizo's Coffee right next to my office has them there, and there's a few other places. Nepenthe is carrying my last book now down in Big Sur, which I'm really happy about.
Where's your favorite place to go? Do you go hiking? Do you do anything like that? Because you look like you're in good shape to probably go do stuff. Like where do you like to go?
Well, I love the Sierras. I grew up going up in the Sierras. I like to be above 11. I'd love to be about 13,000 feet. That's my sweet spot.
Isn't that 2 miles up?
Yeah, that's probably a little more than that. And that's where you're above the tree line. You're in that beautiful granite washed country, and it's God's country as far as I'm concerned. John Muir's Trail is a lot of that up there, and that's where I've spent a lot of my youth, just hanging out up in those areas with my food on my back, dodging bear.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool, man. Nothing makes you feel alive like running for your life, right?
Yeah. You just got to run faster than your kids, right? So you take your kids with you.
Somebody just called and said, "Hey, is this the same Dr. McCollum that has a chiropractor and has something going on tomorrow night?" Yes, they do, right? You do. And
absolutely.
it's not history. Tomorrow is going to be about health, right? Cellular health.
Yeah, tomorrow's really something that everybody should find out about. It's called, we really know that the bottom line of chronic inflammation is our cells are inflamed. And a lot of the treatment is what we call downstream. It's treating the symptoms. You might be doing different types of cleanses. It might be 10 days long or enemas, various things like that. But until you really get up to the cause of the problem upstream, and a lot of times we find this is in the brain. It's heavy metals that we've gotten 4 generations from our mother, molds that are everywhere, biochemicals that we can't get away from, especially in this valley. They cause the cells become inflamed, and that causes disease.
When you say heavy metals in the blood that are passed on from generation to generation, is that what happens with the fish too? And is that why we cannot eat them?
Yeah, it's this
is happening over in the valley.
Oh, of course. Some of the biggest mercury mines in the world are in San Jose. We don't even know where they all are because they're on private property. And that's why it's called the Mercury News, of course. But
what?
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I've been to hiking at the Almaden Quicksilver mines.
Yes, of course.
And that's the first time I ever thought about mercury in those hills. But they're loaded with mercury, huh?
And that's one thing they were worried about, of course, last year with all the water, is if those reservoirs got above a certain point, they would go into the mine shafts, and then more mercury would be dispelled into the water systems and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really scary. You know, if you go up to the Sierras, if you go to like Lake Almanor or Lake Alpine or even Lake Tahoe, and if you pick up a copy of this year's fishing guides at some place like Outdoor World, they're gonna tell you, if you're a woman in childbearing years, do not eat more than one fish out of these lakes in a week. And you know, because they used mercury to extract gold out of the ore, and so the mountains are filled with it, and it's not gotten out of the system. So, you know, I talked about the fog. Our Santa Monterey fog had mercury in it too, coming off of the water.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's all little bits. You know, like I said earlier, we all have a bucket, and that we come into life with a bucket. It might be a shot glass, it might be a 16-ouncer or 32-ouncer. As soon as that bucket is overloaded with toxins, you become sick. And it's the luck of the draw what size bucket you end up with. And plus, it's filled up with your mother's mercury and lead and all these other substances.
Thanks, Mom.
And, you know, I got to tell you one thing. So many of my patients that are teachers tell me that anxiety is one of the biggest problems with kids. It's rampant. And unfortunately, these kids are being put on different types of medications and this stuff. The number 1 and number 2 symptoms of lead and mercury poisoning are anxiety and depression.
47910. So you're going to be covering more of this tomorrow, but for those of us that can't make it tomorrow, can't you just sweat out these toxins? I mean, I've seen people go and sweat in the lodge and go try to sweat when they're working out. They say they're going to sweat it out. Is that not real? Not
really, because our brain is made of fat. These toxins love fat. So the heavy metals look for different areas to hide, and then they get into the brain, they get into the pituitary gland and hypothalamus, which are in your brain, and then they create an environment that molds, bacterias, and parasites love. People talk about Lyme disease. Lyme hides in your body, and it hides in these dark cesspools of the body, which the heavy metals put into play. So if you had grease on your jeans, like oil on your jeans, and you tried to wash it off with water, you could wash all day and you would never get that oil off your jeans. You need a detergent. You need some kind of enzyme to get that out of there. So in order to do a real thorough cleanse of the body, you need to know the right things to put in at the right time to extract those things out of the body. But you also have to prepare the body to be able to handle it. You don't want to unleash some of these heavy metals and molds and bacteria that are hidden in the body, dormant, doing harm, turning on bad genes. But we want to get those out of the body. We got to prepare the body first. So there's a few different steps we'll be going through tomorrow night. And my office is at Brown Ranch Shopping Center, 41st Avenue, next in between Bed Bath & Beyond and Rabobank, 6 to 7 o'clock, McCollum Family Chiropractic, and my number is 459-9990. It's free. Please come join us.
That'll be from 6 to 7 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 218-5726, that's 831-218-KSCO. It was because of the natural asbestos in the ground and the strip mining that the water was bad in Coalinga.
Oh, thank you.
That was sent in to our text messages here. 218-KSCO. What about science fiction or fantasy writing? You do any of that?
Actually, I am. I have a book that's taken place in 2230, and it's about maybe 10,000 words into it right now. Most of my books are about 40 to 50,000 words. It's a really cool book, actually. It's and the 2230s are the millennials, so they call them 2230s, the kids that were born around that time. And it's a fun book. It will be out hopefully by the end of the year. It's called The Fracturing, by the way. And it's a way of putting, when you put on these particular types of lenses that allow you to live a fantasy life in the world you live in. And it's some guy named Mikhail Gorbatsky, a Russian guy who survived the Holocaust, is trying to take over the world. So it's one of those kind of books.
That's not too far from reality now. The augmented reality is what they're calling it, right? So this is what Google glasses do.
Yeah.
So you're not really in an artificial reality, or what is that called?
Yeah, I know. I got to get it out quick because it's going to be history pretty soon if I don't get it out soon.
Augmented reality is what you're talking about there, where you can wear these things and they give you kind of a heads-up display of, where you're at, but you got this kind of computer readout of what's happening. Yeah.
The thing is, in this particular book, the Russians have found a way to basically control your mind subtly, and then, of course, they want to make an army of people that are going to take over the world. First time ever that's happened, right?
479-1080, dm@ksco.com. You were talking about mercury being used to extract gold. Any minerals being mined out of Coalinga, or was it all oil?
Well, coal and oil.
Coal and oil.
Yeah. No, I don't know about that. But you're getting back onto the mercury. Mercury is such a huge problem, and I don't really want to go into all of the controversy about it right now at this point, but come tomorrow night we can talk about it. But Dave Biles talks about it on this radio show quite a bit.
Yeah.
And getting that stuff out of your mouth is really imperative. It's right next to your brain, and you can believe it or not, but it does off gas, and they've proven it, and it gets up into your brain and it causes damage, and Alzheimer's and all these things are being augmented by several things. Heavy metals is one of them.
218-5726-dm@ksco.com. The Santa Cruz Sentinel wasn't named after some toxic metal. Santa Cruz Sentinel has been around since 1856, serving the people of Santa Cruz County. 706-3261. They have 3 fantastic deals for our listeners. Here they are. You can get the Santa Cruz Sentinel Sunday edition only, right, Dr. McCollum? For 26 weeks. That's half a year of the Sunday edition for less than $1 per Sunday. That's less than $24 for half a year of the Sunday edition of the Santa Cruz Sentinel. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that's the weekend edition, right? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 different editions for 13 weeks, less than 50 cents per day. 7 days a week of the Santa Cruz Sentinel, 35 cents per day.
Wow. You go buy the thing, it's $1.50.
Yeah, it's $1.50 on the cover.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Save some money and subscribe to the Santa Cruz Sentinel. Okay, so we're here with Dr. McCollum. He has an event coming up tomorrow. We're talking Coalinga and Coaling Station A, The Rise and Fall of an Oil Boomtown, which is his book written with a lot of facts tied into it, right? So it's not total. It is a fiction, right? It's a work of fiction.
Yeah, it is definitely fiction, but there's a lot of history to it, a lot of
So if you're from Coalinga, you're going to read these places and actually know where these streets are?
Yeah. And it's really interesting. It's amazing how many people are either from Coalinga, worked in Coalinga, or, live there now. I brought it up. I thought nobody knows about Coalinga. And, my grandfather lived there. I lived there for 5 years. My friend lives there now. It's like, what? It's amazing. 16,000 people live there.
What is it like now?
It's just a kind of a desert town. It's a one-row town, and you drive through there, and they've got Starbucks, and they have some industry. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but the oil's still going crazy there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you though. Here's a funny thing. When I went there to take my book to the museum, it was closed. So I told you earlier, I went to Starbucks and I found a guy that used to be mayor who bought my book and said, well, you should go down to the record that your grandpa used to own. My grandpa owned the Coalinga record for like 60 years or something. Huh? So I went down to the record and it was closed. There was a piece of paper on it that said out on a story. So I thought, okay, what kind of story do they have here going on? And right next door was a barbershop. And so I'll walk into the barbershop. So I walk into the barbershop with a book under my arm. And the guy goes, what's your story? And I go, my story is I wrote this book. And all around his walls are pictures of old Coalinga. And he goes, I remember your dad. Your grandpa. I remember Mac. Yeah, he was part of the thing. I used to cut his hair. So wow. It's amazing.
So Coalinga is a one barber town, one stoplight town.
And he was the mayor, too. He was another one of the mayors.
Wow.
But his family was there before Coalinga was a town, too, because he was reading my book when I was talking to the editor of the paper who finally came back. And he comes next door and he goes, this family here, that was my family. And it was before Coalinga. It was like the sheep herder people that got there before.
479-1080. We're here with Dr. McCollum. If you want to ask a question, just give us a call, send a text, or email. Now, you say Coalinga is in Monterey County, yes?
Yeah, it's down by Harris Ranch, and it's about 12 miles off the road and off the Highway 101 when you're heading south. Or excuse me, Highway 5. Highway 5 is heading south.
You know, a lot of people out there are listening, and I'm going to ask a question of them that I asked you, and that was, last time I went to the Pinnacles, which was just a few days ago, I was driving down, I think it's 25, whatever road that is that takes you out to the Pinnacles.
Yeah, 25.
And there was a dirt road that said La Gloria Road, and then it had a sign that points to west, right? It was pointing right because I'm driving this way. And it says you can hit Gonzales that way. But this is a dirt road that just went through a cow pasture. And I was thinking, that can't possibly be that long of a road. And if it is, I want to drive it. So if anybody knows that road does connect, give me a call. I would love to know that. 479-1080. Let's head out to Watsonville and pick up Rory. You're in the air, Rory.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Yeah, you better have a good truck with some four-wheel drive if you take Gloria Road over.
Oh, okay.
But, hey, your guest is fascinating. Quick question. I understand that the name Coalinga was you call it a bastardization of Coal Line A.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that right?
Coaling Station A is because it was one of 3 coaling stations where the train would stop to pick up coal. And that's the name of my book, by the way, Coaling Station A. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a Spanish name, right?
Yeah, it would have that kind of that sound to it. But, Coaling Station A, it's the rise and fall of an oil boomtown. It takes place in about 1915. Yeah, you should pick it up. I'm sure you'll love it. It's full of a lot of good history.
Where is it locally?
The book is at Bookshop Santa Cruz. It's at Zizzo's Coffee in Capitola, which is kind of next to my office. I have it at my office, McCollum Family Chiropractic, and
nice.
And Kelly's Bookstore in Watsonville, actually.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
she has all 3 of them.
That's great. Well, that's an interesting place. I mean, it is out. It's kind of like an oil patch town out in the middle of nowhere. But New Hydra, out there off of Highway 25 that Dave was just talking about, being out that way towards Pinnacle, those were the Quicksilver mining areas, were they not?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, if you check it out, I think that's where they mined a lot of mercury.
I didn't know it was down there.
Because you were talking about heavy metals, and we'll look up New Hydra mine. I think that was a Quicksilver mine.
Wow.
And when we were kids, we would, if the thermometer broke, we'd play with the mercury.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, I used to hold it in my hand. I would collect it from the 5 and Dime store. I'd go spend my money, buy a toy, break it open, and put it in this little glass that I had, and I'd play with that stuff. I'm surprised. Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting. I had dyslexia so bad as a kid. I couldn't. It's hard to believe, but I couldn't read till I was 28. I was functionally illiterate. Yeah, completely. Wow. I could not read a comic. I had somebody would give me a comic strip with like 4 little squares with 3 words, and they'd start laughing, and I'd laugh because I should have got to the end of the comic by then. So I was so messed up with the medication that I had to take because I broke my back and the mercury and dyslexia. I couldn't read till I was 28.
479-1080. Thank you for your call, Rory. We have less than a minute. Let's share it with Eastside Pete. You're in the air.
Yeah, this is really cool. I'm listening to this story. I'm going to have to get that book. My wife was born in Coalinga, and her dad was an oil man who ended up in Coalinga. He and my mother-in-law went to Coalinga High. He was a football dude,
wow.
And she was the homecoming queen.
Wow, that's amazing. See what I'm saying? You guys Coalinga's coming out of the woodwork. I'm bringing it back.
I remember Coalinga when it was there were just the 4-way stop signs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how old your grandpa would, or your dad would be, or your wife's dad would be, but yeah, my dad was born in 1913, and he went to Coalinga High, of course.
I seem to remember that selenium bonds with heavy metals and helps to get them out of your system. Is that true?
Well, it does, but the problem is that most chelators are, what we've really found is, and I work with a guy named Dr. Daniel Pompa, and he's the leading authority in cellular inflammation, cellular detox on the planet. Mm-hmm. He's with some of the guys from, Dr. Longo from MIT, Dr. Jason Fung, he's a nephrologist that's a kidney doctor who is developing and really talking about fasting and how fasting is good for detoxification. Mm-hmm. The problem with chelators is a lot of them are too weak to get out of the body. So You stir up the mercury and various things in your body, and it gets into your large intestine. There's something called bile. Bile is so strong. It binds to these heavy metals, or the heavy metals bind to it and get reabsorbed back into the body. So it's kind of like you're re-stimulating all these toxins, getting them as far as your large intestine, but we're not getting it out. So you need a catcher's mitt down there. You need something stronger than bile to attach to these heavy metals and get them out of your body. And that's the thing that Dr. Pompa, you can find him on Cellular TV. Cellular Healing TV, I recommend you start looking at him. I'm one of the about 20 doctors that work with him very close. And I'll be doing a talk in McCollum Family Chiropractic in Capitola. I guarantee you will not hear what we're going to talk about. It's so new. We're talking about, there's a doctor named Dr. Yoshinori Asumi who won the 2016 Nobel Prize for understanding how the body kills weak cells and uses those to make new cells, make stem cells to make new cells. So come see us, man, and we'll really give you a lot of information that you can take home. That's a multi-therapeutic approach, and nobody's really doing a multi-therapeutic approach. We're stressing the body in different ways to get these bugs in our gut called microbiome, where there's more, like 10 times more bugs than there are human cells in our body, but they have all got fat and lazy. We've got to stress them. We've got to wipe out the weak ones and make them fight for their life. Then they are strong enough to make our bodies strong so our bodies can bounce back. In the old days, you would eat a mammoth. And then once you're done with the meat, you would eat the fat during the wintertime and maybe some stored grain. Then springtime would come along and there wouldn't be anything, so you'd starve for a little while. They call it starvation spring. How many religions have fasting involved in it? And then the greens would start to come, and then the fruits and vegetables would come. Then you'd have to kill a mammoth again. And so there's no more mammoths. But the point is that what Dr. Pompa has really developed and understood with a lot of the fasting guys out there is you need to put your body through times of feast and famine to wipe out the bad bugs and allow the good, strong ones to live. Dr. Asumi, the man who won the 2016 prize, found that when you stress the body, your body's going to wipe out the weak cells first. We used to think if you didn't eat, you'd break down muscle. Well, done the right way, your body's going to spare the good, healthy cells and wipe out the weak cells. One of the problems with autoimmune disease, and autoimmune is big right now, is that white blood cells have memory. And the old white blood cells have these bad memories. It's like, a bad habit. They go around re-stimulating problems that you don't have anymore, and then your body doesn't know what to do, so it fights itself. So when you go into autophagy, which Dr. Asumi talked about, and when you do intermittent fasting, along with diet variation and a few other things to chelate the heavy metals out of your body, you can actually get the cells to work right, and you can actually, the things that are turning on the bad genes and give you those chronic diseases, we're going to get those out of the cells, rebuild the cell wall, and get the power plant healthy in there called the mitochondria again.
Paul, you're in the air.
Yeah, I heard a term that I was trying to understand, chelation.
Okay.
I had a former boss who was talked into doing chelation with hydrogen peroxide, and it damn near almost killed him. And I was just questioning whether that's a continuing practice or whether it's only done in obscure techniques and so forth.
Well, there are medical doctors that can do chelation.
What is chelation, by the way? Thank you for your call.
Yeah.
Paul.
So chelation is when something is attracted to something else. So you can put a substance through the body, and it's like when you take a magnet and you put it around the ground and you pick up the graphite. That's chelation, basically.
Okay.
So you put substances in the bloodstream or in the body, and as it goes through the body, anything that's near the surface that can be attached to that magnet will get pulled out of the body.
Okay.
And then as long as that magnet is stronger and can get it all the way out of your rear end, if you will, you're going to have a good effect. But a lot of times the magnets are too weak, and it all gets dumped back into your intestines and gets re-stimulated in the body.
You said that you said it, not me, and so I'm gonna ask you about it. When you said it as it comes out, the way things exit our bodies, right?
Yeah.
I've seen these things through different detox programs where just I mean, you won't believe what comes out of there. Is that what's supposed to happen? That's toxic. Those are toxins?
There's a lot of different...
I always thought it was maybe some kind of gimmicky thing.
Well, there's a lot of things. Dr. Pompa talks about this. Dr. Bernard Jensen back in the day was the main colon therapy dude back about in the 50s, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to it. Basically, they talk about the mucus lining in the large intestines, and you take bentonite clay, various things that attach to that lining and pull it out.
Right.
A lot of times, they used to say, and they still do, that that's pulling out fake linings of the intestines, and in that mucoid layer, parasites, bacteria, molds, chemicals reside. And they used to say, and I'm saying used to because I'm sure they still do, that a lot of times we'll see parasites come out and tapeworms come out and things like that, and you do. A lot of times what you're seeing in that, though, is actually kind of like a gelatin that forms inside, and it just collects the material and pulls it out. So depending on which one you're doing, I mean, some of it is just attaching to the walls and scraping it out like, it makes Jell-O in there and the Jell-O comes out. Other parts have substances in there that can actually kill the bacteria, molds, and bad things that we don't want in there. So there's a lot of A to Z on that. But let me just say, there's a lot of cleanses people do, and that are really trendy. They might do a 10-day cleanse. They might do these various other ones that last 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they feel good for a little while. But unless you do a complete thing, I mean, you're talking about months to get it done right.
Okay.
It's just kind of like if you spilled white or red wine on a white carpet, and you decided you better put salt on there and pull up the stain. 3 months later, the stain's coming back. To really do a good cleanse, you got to get rid of it all the way down. And that's what we're talking about. When you get to the brain, the magic is in the brain. When you get the heavy metals out of the brain, that's where the magic begins.
479-1080. Now, you're also a chiropractic, right?
Correct.
A doctor of chiropractic,
yeah.
Correct? I feel terrible. I've been sitting on my butt for the past 4 days trying to work on my website. I've just been sitting and sitting and sitting. My back is a wreck right now.
Yeah.
What do you do to take a break? I mean, how should I say? Sometimes as I'm sitting down, I try to straighten my spine as much, and I know it sounds silly, right? But you can imagine straightening your spine. Try to straighten it as much as possible. Does that help?
Well,
what is the correct way to sit and hold your spine? Even if you're driving, should you have your seat laid back? I like to lay my seat back. Is that not the good thing to do?
The bottom line, really, without really handling the problem, just trying to work with the symptom a little bit, is to change your position a lot. So if you're driving and you want to long distances, you should move your seat forward, back, bring the backrest up and back, so you're not stuck in one position. We call it postural syndrome.
Okay.
And when you get into a postural syndrome, sitting is worse than anything, because when you have all these movable bones in your back called vertebra, and in between them is a little shock absorber called a disc. And when you sit, you get no motion in there, and you don't pump any more nutrition into those discs. Eventually they dry up and get kind of brittle, and they crack, and then you get the spurs and everything like that. So, really, quite honestly, what I do as a chiropractor, well, first of all, I was carried in at 20 years old. I was flat on my back for 3 weeks. I could not move. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was in so much pain. I was going to Cabrillo College. All of the medication my friends gave me, which was different than the one the pharmaceuticals gave me, nothing worked. I literally, and I'm sure there's people out there that are as frustrated as I was then and feeling so terrible, I was really considering, what do I do to end this? Because I wasn't going to be a paraplegic. I didn't want to do that. If there's, I'm sorry, that wasn't for me. 2 friends of mine picked me up and carried me into a chiropractor's office against my will. That guy took an x-ray. It turns out I fell out of a tree when I was 10 years old up in Berkeley, and I hurt myself so badly, but the medical doctor said I had growing pains. This guy took an x-ray and found out I broke my back when I was 10 years old.
Jeez.
So I'd been walking around with a crushed vertebra for 10 years.
Wow.
And so I got carried into a chiropractor's office. He's the first one to listen to me and believe I was in pain. He's the first guy to take an x-ray. I still have the x-ray today where he showed me where my back was broken, and he gave me my first adjustment, and I walked out of there. So that's when I decided that I found my calling. After being in pain for 10 years, and I told you I couldn't read till I was 28. Part of it was because I was on all these meds and also dyslexic, and I played with mercury. So all of those things. And asbestos, yeah.
Okay, so you are a chiropractic doctor now.
Yeah.
You have an event coming up tomorrow, but people can get a hold of you to get back adjustments. How does this work? So I go in there, and I get a back adjustment, and I come back. Yes, come back no, come back regularly. How does this work?
Well, basically, the first thing that I do, because this is what I experience, is I want a complete, thorough evaluation of what's going on in whoever, and find out that some people they played sports, they've fallen off of roofs, they might have multiple injuries and accidents. So we have to get a real thorough history of what's going on, and then do some orthopedic and neurologic examinations, and then I will take x-rays. I have a digital x-ray machine in my office. We do standing x-rays. They're very, very clear, very new, and very low dose. Those x-rays will let me know how bad your spine is or isn't. Because I'm not really the kind of guy that's going to say, come on in and let me give you an adjustment and let you get out of pain and come back when it hurts. That's fine if that's what you want, but it'd be like putting Novocaine when you have a toothache, and then pretty soon you need a root canal. So I'm going to look at how to optimize your spine to help you get, number one, as much pain relief as possible. Sometimes people wait so long, they may never be pain-free, but my goal is to make sure it never gets worse. So to make this really quick, you come in, we do an exam consultation, I take some x-rays, then I'll send you home because it takes me about an hour and a half to go through all that material. I have you come back the next day, and we sit down and we look at your x-rays, and we talk about if I think I can help you, if I need to refer you to somebody else, and a different type of doctor. And if I can help you, I'm going to go, look, this is what you can expect. It's going to take X amount of time and probably cost this much. And if you have insurance or not, we'll deal with that when you get there. But I don't really want to talk necessarily about this all day long. But if you came into my office with a rope around your neck, and you came and you gave me your insurance card, and I found out that your insurance didn't cover neck removal, you still need the neck, you still need it removed. Part of the problem with the healthcare in our country is people are only doing what their insurance will cover. That's why we are rated 50th in the world for health. That's why we take 50% of all the medications in the world, and we're only 4% of the population. So I don't want to buy into that thing. That's why I'm talking about cellular inflammation. That's why when somebody comes in as a chiropractic patient, we do complete thorough evaluation and examination and tell them what they need to get optimized, not just out of pain. There's other doctors that specialize that, and they're great at what they do. I just am different.
479-1080, 218-5726, dm@ksco.com. Okay, so before we head out of here, I had a person call and wanted to know, he said he worked in the military. He wants to know more about mercury and how it affects your thinking and understanding. So we'll talk about that, but I want to talk about some history first, so let's keep that in mind, okay? We will answer that before we get out of here. Where are we going now?
So I thought we would talk about the other side of my family, a very interesting story. The Ortons got here in 1634.
Orton?
O-R-T-O-N. And
Okay.
Little Big Jim Orton is the name of the kid in my first book.
Okay.
But anyway, Julius Orton signed up for the military during the Mexican-American War. And as it turned out, the war ended in about 1848, and he was in Nevada right when gold was discovered. So he was very close to Hangtown, or Placerville. So he went to Hangtown, and he found
You said this name before. Hangtown, you mean like...
Yeah, Hangtown, because there were at least two hangings a day in Hangtown. That's why it got called Hangtown, and several shootings, because it was right in the heart of the mother lode. And, people couldn't turn their back once they had their claim. So Julius somehow got word to his brother, Silas Orton, out in back east somewhere. So Silas came out and stood guard while Julius mined his gold there in Placerville. He made enough money to come to SoCal, California, about 20,000 acres in SoCal before it was a state. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And I pause there because it sounds amazing. The problem is, or what, as fate would have it, when California became part of the United States, he lost it all. So, and can you imagine this? You fight in a war, you go and you live through some place called Hangtown. You are one of the lucky ones who strikes it rich. You buy 20,000 acres in the most beautiful place in the world just to lose it. So because he fought in the war, he was allotted 160 acres by the government. So he went to Visalia, actually, and became a pig farmer. So that's what he ended up doing.
Well, actually, I don't know that's such a bad deal. He served in the military and get how many acres?
160. A quarter of a section is what it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
They don't do that anymore, I guess.
No, I don't think so. Andy is calling from Monterey. You're in the air, Andy.
Hi, David. I got a question for Dr. McCullough. The question is numb feet and toes and everything. Is that a toxin or a chiropractic adjustment?
Well, that's a great question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, it can be anything from diabetes to a pinched nerve. The diabetes and insulin is something that we should talk about when we answer the other gentleman's question. But when our cells get and bear with me for a second on this answer, okay? But as the cells get inflamed in our body, they can no longer hear insulin or any hormones. So rather than one insulin opening the door to get sugar in, now pretty soon you got to push, your pancreas is putting out all this insulin to open the door to get that one sugar molecule in your cell. Well, it can't get any of the other hormones in there anyway. Insulin becomes like a viscosity in your orange juice. It's got a lot of pulp in it. That stuff and other toxins are circulating around in your bloodstream, and the thickness of the little teeny blood vessels in the tips of your toes, only one blood vessel or one corpuscle or one red blood cell can go there at a time. And because of the thick, sticky blood cells and the other things like insulin in the blood, they get plugged up. So you can get numbness by the fact that you're not getting circulation in your feet. You can also have a pinched nerve in your low back. Maybe you worked for a living. Maybe you had an injury. Maybe you played sports in high school, and finally it got to a point where the nerve is so choked off that your feet are going numb. So there's a lot of different things it can be. Toxins by themselves probably isn't going to be the case. It's going to be a combination of, a buildup over a lifetime. And make sure that it isn't something to do with the blood sugar and diabetes problem. And that's so those would be a couple thoughts.
I tested for diabetes, don't have it. So it must be some kind of a pinched nerve or something.
Where do you live in Monterey?
I live in Monterey. I live off of Central Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, there's some great chiropractors down there. Contact my office and I'll find one for you. 459-9990. There's somebody that can do that, or come up to my event.
That's what I was thinking. I've got to go to Watsonville, and I thought, well, maybe I'll come a little early and drop off there at 6.
Yeah, and then we can talk and we can figure out what's going on and see if we can help you.
What are we going to talk about next? You want to talk family, some more history? Do you want to address this health question?
Let's address the health question because we're kind of talking about it. Okay. And a gentleman called in asking more about mercury.
Right. So here's what he wanted me to ask you. He wanted to ask about mercury, and you were saying how it affects thinking and our understanding sometimes. He claims that he worked in the military with a bunch of chemicals and had a 6.5 mercury rating. I don't know what that is, but
yeah,
it means something to you?
Absolutely. Okay. So, and I don't know if you know the gentleman's name, but mercury is a big problem. It's part of the whole problem, okay? So you've got inflammation that mercury is causing. You've probably got some other heavy metals in there. What happens is other toxins love to hang around with mercury. So it's fat, and your brain is fat. So you get, it opens up what's called the blood-brain barrier. So these little a sieve that was supposed to protect your brain from harmful things. It's like if you take a screwdriver to a sieve and you make those holes bigger, all of a sudden you're getting harmful things into your brain, and you get brain fog. And brain fog is caused by several things, heavy metals and toxins, but this is really important. Diabetes type 3 is called insulin on the brain. When we have insulin resistance, which is caused by cellular inflammation, which means that the cell can't use one insulin, it needs a lot more to get the message into the cell. We have too much insulin in our blood. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that insulin lays down plaque, like plaque on your teeth in your brain. Mm-hmm. That's causing Alzheimer's disease. Now, there's a lot of things that we need to do to get that reversed if we catch it in time, or help make sure it doesn't get worse. And we'll be going over that in detail tomorrow night. I just don't have time to do it now. But it really comes down to cleaning out your detox pathways. We've got to get your body able to dump the toxins. Mm-hmm. And then we got to have something we talked about a minute ago called chelators, strong enough to grab those bad things outside of your brain and then into your brain and get them all the way out of the body without having them getting grabbed by somebody else, like a stronger magnet called bile. And then it keeps retoxifying your body. And then you're just in a chronic inflamed condition. And this is going to lead to bad genes being turned on, causing genetic diseases. And there's a lot of them out there. And once they turn on, there's usually medication is what they want to give you.
I've been to a chiropractor several times,
mm-hmm.
and I remember the one in particular. One time I went and I got a back adjustment, and it was so amazing how differently my body functioned after it had been adjusted properly, I'm assuming, but adjusted. And I couldn't believe the difference. I mean, everything from, I don't want to be gross, but everything was different from the way it could just feel the blood flowing through you, things flowing out of you. It was just very, very different, very clean, and almost like you got a new start.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it makes you feel.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's a great experience.
Only once, though, out of all those times. Only one time he hit it right on the money.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like you don't floss your teeth once. You don't clean your car once. You don't fill it up with gas once. To be healthy and to live a really healthy life, you got to have your nervous system working well. Mm-hmm. And symptoms are not. A lot of people don't even know that you can have stomach problems and bloating that's related to a pinched nerve in your back. You only have 31 spinal nerves coming out of your brain going to each side of your body. 31 spinal nerves on one side, 31 spinal nerves on the other. They go to every cell and organ in your body. You lose one spinal nerve, you're shutting down a whole continent. Mm-hmm. You're if that nerve goes to your liver or your kidney, your gallbladder, your stomach, your spleen, your lungs, your heart, you've got problems. So there is really three parts of health. One is the nervous system communicates hardwired to every cell and organ in your body. And then what we're going to be talking about tomorrow is the chemical part, the hormone part. Your body has optimum function based on hormones, which are, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormone, all those type of things. If your brain is clogged up with heavy metals, toxins, viruses, bacteria, and molds that get through the blood-brain barrier because of the toxins, you're going to be sick. And then the third one, of course, is, if you want to call it spiritual or mental, if you got people around there that are making you miserable, you got to get away from them. So the three parts of health is the nervous system, the chemical system, and then the mental system. So I'll be talking about the chemical one tomorrow. We kind of went through the physical one here with your example, Dave, of getting a really good adjustment that freed up the nerves long enough for your body to do what it's supposed to do, which is heal. Right. It doesn't need interference. It knows what to do. We just need to remove the interference, whether it's physical or chemical, and so the body can do what it's supposed to do and heal itself.
Back to history.
Yeah.
Over in San Jose, I told you I went hiking at the New Hydra, not New Hydra, but the Almaden Quicksilver Mine. Mm-hmm. And they had a plaque out there that went on to describe an event that took place at the request of President Abraham Lincoln. And that mine was owned by somebody who wanted to rebel. I remember now. He wanted to be a Confederate, right? So he wanted to rebel, the guy who owned that mine. And President Lincoln wanted there was a dispute over who owned that mine. So President Lincoln was going to send the troops over there to take control of that mine until that dispute was settled. Well, that guy was a Confederate supporter and was going to raise hell and shoot whoever came onto the property to take that mine. So Lincoln said, you know what, let's let those guys blow smoke, and we'll just wait them out. So that's what they did, and luckily no blood was spilled there at the Quicksilver mine. But President Lincoln did send, a troop out there to go and take that mine if necessary. You had a story. With dealing with Abraham Lincoln too, right?
Yeah, a couple shows ago you were talking about the Civil War, and I think you were talking about Confederates in California. And of course, John Steinbeck's book, The Wayward Bus, talks about Confederate Corner in Salinas and all that. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Wayward Bus talks about the Confederates' Corner in Salinas, and kind of alluded to the fact that it was a lot of Confederate sympathizers. But what's really interesting is as I mentioned before, my great-great-grandfather was first marshal of Salinas, and built the first 5 houses on John Street. Where the International House of Pancakes was for a while, that's where their original house was. But his son joined the war, and he went for, not the Confederates, for the North. And I have a letter from him. I'm going to just read a portion of it here.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. And his name was Daniel McDougall. And he said, let's see, the next morning we took cars for Boston to be mustered in there with the troops. And the spelling is atrocious. Then we took cars for Washington and camped for 4 days at the Capitol building. Then crossed the Potomac Channel Bridge into Virginia. Now we commenced operations in Virginia. We was sent out after Mosby. I guess he was a general for the South. We chased him all around for 3 months and couldn't catch him. He was slicker than a gopher. I got a pass into Washington and had no money. Suppose I looked hungry that we asked me. He was slicker than a gopher. I got a pass into Washington and had no money. I stood before the White House, and a gentleman came by with a load of watermelons. Old Abe came out to buy corn, and I suppose I looked so hungry that he asked me what soldier I was. I said I was a California and had not been paid off in 6 months and had no money. He put his hand in his vest pocket and gave me $1 to buy melons. We had quite a talk with Abe. We returned to the Army, and we moved to the Rapton River, then moved on to Richmond and opened a campaign. You ought to see me then. We was charging, and it goes on and on. But anyway.
Wow, that's great. How much more is there left?
Just another paragraph.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I like that.
All right, let's see where it was. We were charging, and we came up, and I came up so scared that I didn't know which side was up. My teeth was a chattering, and I was white as a sheet. But then they began to fall around me, and they said that I just sailed in. Then it began to rain, and we began to run, and it rained so hard that the road was so muddy that it was awful. And it goes on. I won't go on to it because it gets a little bit gruesome after that, some of the stuff that happened. But
really?
Yeah.
So who is that letter from and to?
This is from Daniel McDougall. He is my great-great-uncle. Mm-hmm. And he actually, when my great-great-grandfather took a wagon train across to Salinas in 1849, he was too young to go. So him and his 3 other siblings had tags wrapped around their neck, and they sailed out of New York to the Isthmus of Panama. Wow. They rode across the isthmus on mules and then came back up to New York on a ship, and then the family picked them up.
Jeez.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting, when he went to join the North, he went on a ship down to Panama again, went across Panama on a train that time, and then rode up in a boat. And this is really interesting. I'll read this part. He goes, it was 1862. McDougall enlisted in the San Francisco and the California 100 for 3 years or during the war. We took the steamer for Panama and crossed on a railroad and took the steamer for New York. The food did not suit us, so we told the captain of the steamer that we wanted better gruel, and if he didn't give it to us, we'd throw him overboard. And it didn't come, so over it went, tables and all. Then we loaded up the cannon with powder and pistol balls and pinned it to the hurricane deck and told the captain that we would blow him out of the ocean if he didn't furnish more. So he put up more, and that's I can't read his writing very well here. But anyway, so that's what it was like then. You know, when we got to New York, it was cold and snowing. They took him to a theater and granted and gave him a little bit of time off. But anyway, it's cool, man. And the history is so amazing.
It is cool. And you know, I'm blown away just by the stuff that you brought in. What's really, really cool, too bad that this is radio and they can't see that book that you have there, that leather-bound book.
Oh, yeah.
That thing is bitchin'. That thing is so cool. How old is that book?
Well,
it reminds me of, have you ever been to the, I don't know what the office is called. It's some kind of records office. When I was, let me see, I think I was going to Jamaica on the longevity trip. Because, you know, if you've become a longevity distributor, there's lots of bonuses. But sometimes if you do good, you get free trips, right? So I was going to Jamaica, and I've been adopted. I was adopted, so I needed to go to Salinas, which is the city that I was born, and find paperwork, which is weird because my name was Marty Fisher. They didn't have my name, my current name. They had to, they couldn't find my birth certificate until I mentioned my name was Marty Fisher. I was born by that name, and they went and found it. But when I was there at that office, I was looking at a bunch of books, and these were records that were from back in the days of the ranchos, right? I mean, so this is when, I mean, this is from like day one of California, and the writing looks exactly like that.
Yeah, really
I mean, it is amazing to look at this. I mean, these are actually people's writings. I mean, these are very important people's writings, you know, founding fathers of the towns, and it's their handwriting in these books, and that's what you have here.
Yeah, this is a book that my great-great-grandmother has, and it's called Bella McDougall is her name, and she's in my last book, Kaleidoscope, and it's her Civil War scrapbook. So the gentleman
that's from the Civil War?
Yeah. So the guy that I just read, Daniel, was her brother. So when Daniel went to San Francisco and then down through the Panama, Bella kept track of the war because she wanted to know that Daniel was okay. So she read all the papers and followed him based on the company that he was with. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of newspaper clippings of all of the stuff that's, you know, the major battles in the war here and stuff, and other little anecdotal things. But I mean, I haven't read it all because it's ominous.
Yeah.
But also, it's what it was an old ledger that kept track of their money.
That's the cool part. Yes.
Yeah, and it has, you know, like shortcakes and all the prices of all of the things. And it was 1860, I think, is what. So this was an old ledger they didn't need anymore. So she used it as a scrapbook. And so
that's an old ledger book, and she just pasted those newspaper articles on top of them.
Yeah, and
because people can't see it right now, but this book is an old leather-bound book, right? Leather covers, and it's a ledger book. And now I could see it. She just pasted all those old newspaper articles on there.
It's pretty amazing. I just so much fun to go through this stuff. I got so much of it. I have our family Bible from 1777. It's called the First American Bible, and the first McCollum was written in there in 1777. So that means they were born here in the United States, which means that they were there for the Revolutionary War and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
479-1080-218-5726. Boy, Dr. McCollum, we have like 3 or 4 minutes, which is a weird amount of time. Not much time to get into anything, really. So let's do this. Let's promise our audience that we could do this again.
I would love to.
Okay, and we'll talk about, what are we going to talk about next time?
We've got a lot more stuff.
What's your new book? You have a new book coming out?
My latest one's Kaleidoscope. This is 100-year anniversary of the Armistice Day, the end of World War I. And so this is a great book. I think it's my best, and people tell me it should be a movie. But my book I'm coming out with probably in about 2 months or probably 3 months, will be the sequel to Little Big Jim, The Journeys of Little Big Jim. It's called The Journey's End. That's the boat that Little Big Jim came on, and that's my new cover for.
Wow,
isn't that cool?
That is cool.
I'd show it to you guys, but you can't see it.
Right. You did show it to them, but they can't see it.
Yeah, I had to ask Dave what to wear. Am I okay for radio?
Jethro Tull. I can't believe that you like Jethro Tull and like that music that we were playing.
I was at this concert in 1972 in Berkeley.
Yeah, his music I just could never get.
Oh,
I
really?
just can't get his music. I don't understand it. It just doesn't appeal to me.
I gotcha.
In any way.
Oh, you're too young.
Yeah, I guess so. 479-1080-21. And Susan thinks I'm an idiot for not liking Jethro. You like Jethro Tull too, huh?
I can't understand how anybody could not like Jethro
Oh
Tull.
my gosh, he is unbelievable.
But it also depends on the songs. There are some that I don't like.
Yeah.
There are plenty
I've
that I
listened to a
really
lot.
do.
I've listened to a lot, and I just couldn't find.
Have you listened to Thick as a Brick?
Oh my, that's a
Have
shirt.
you listened
That's a
to
good
the
song.
words?
Okay, yes, that's a good song. Okay, so there's one song.
That's the shirt I'm wearing, by the way. Thick as a brick.
That is a good
Nice.
song.
That's it.
That is good.
I took my son up for the reunion of it. It was pretty cool.
Really? Did he like it?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. McCollum, you have 2 minutes now, so let's recap. Tell me the name of the 3 books which are available on Amazon.
Yeah, they're available on Amazon. The first one is